All right, so what book are we in tonight?
Numbers chapter 3.
Chapter 3. Yes, we are. Let me get there.
It's a long chapter.
It's a little longer, yeah, than the other one. How many verses we get? Like 51? Yeah, 51. Yeah, what we're going to learn about tonight? Well, yeah, numbers. Yeah. So, keep up. So Numbers chapter 3. So I'm going to give you a quick little outline here once I find my clicker, which I left over here. All right. Turn this guy back on. All right. So this chapter is all about the priesthood. Right? So we're going to talk about the ministry. We're going to talk about the priesthood and what the priests represent. Their job is to represent the people to God. Right? We're going to dig into that a little bit more. There's a few more things that they're going to do as we read through this chapter. And they're also responsible for teaching God's law. Right? So, how many of you guys remember back in a couple books before we read about the high priest, right? And what he had. His garment was special, right? He had a special garment. He was the high priest. He had 2 stones on each shoulder. Remember what that's for? Mm. 2 stones on each shoulder. It's the burden to weigh him down. The burden of the people, right? Then there was 6 tribes on one side and 6 tribes on the other side. That's for the 12 tribes, right? He bore them on his shoulder to weigh the weight and the concerns of the people of God. His breastplate covered his heart, and it contains 12 stones as well, right? So, the heartfeltness of the tribe. Symbolizing the prayer of the people, the service of the people, and the loving of the people. Yes.
I have a question. When you were going over this stuff last time, and you were talking about the 12 tribes,
Mm-hmm.
3 on each, and then you have the Levites. They're not part of any tribe, are they?
They're the center.
From the
They're
different tribes?
they're the center. Yes, they're not, but they're not.
From different tribes?
They're their own tribe. Yes, they're the priests,
13 tribes.
technically.
Okay.
Yes. To answer your question, yes. Yeah, but the 12 tribes. We'll learn more about these Levites as we go through, as I said. As I said, they're responsible. We'll read this in Leviticus, but they're responsible, or we did read it in Leviticus since we've already studied it. They're responsible for teaching God's law, right? And in Deuteronomy, we'll learn that they'll also become the judges, right? Deuteronomy 17 to be exact. I actually put it in there, right? And later on, we'll also see the prophets arise. Now, when Israel enters the promised land, the Levites do not inherit any portion of land. They do, however, get Levitical cities, 48 of them to be exact, and they kind of intersect all the tribes, right, and all the little cities that the tribes have. And their inheritance is the Lord himself. So that's what they get. They are full-time in the ministry, and they have their own holy garments, right? As we saw back in Leviticus, I believe, that they have their own holy garments. Today, we no longer need those garments, right? At least we don't believe we do. Some religions still do. But that's what Christ did on the cross. He died. He's the high priest. According to Paul, there is no need for men to go to a priest or another human being to represent me to God. Christ is the mediator for all of his children, right? All right. Anybody want to read any verses tonight?
Whatever you want me to do, I'll read.
You want to read the first 4?
Okay.
We'll change it up. We'll try somebody else reading for a change.
Yeah, I was writing my answer to your question.
You're fine. We're going to go over those questions in a little bit. Don't worry. Don't worry. Yes.
Chapter 3.
Yeah, verses 1 through 4.
These are the generations of Aaron and Moses in the day that the Lord spake with Moses on Mount Sinai. And these are the names of the sons of Aaron: Nadab the firstborn, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. These are the names of the sons of Aaron, the priests which were anointed, whom he consecrated to minister in the priest's office. And Nadab and Abihu died before the Lord when they offered strange fire before the Lord. Now, I meant to say that they were offering sin, because the fire was supposed to be holy and come from the Lord, and they were trying to shortcut it.
We're going to talk about that fire. Yes, we are.
They offered strange fire before the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai, and they had no children. And Eleazar and Ithamar ministered in the priest's office in the sight of Aaron their father.
Yes, they did. So this book, this portion of the book, or this chapter, starts out. We see that Moses and Aaron's children, right, and mainly Aaron's children, the 4, right, introduced 2 of them that died in the wilderness for the profane fire, Nadab and Abihu. The other 2 were priests with their father, right? But it's interesting. It's interesting as we go through this, and the Bible's laid out this way a lot, right? That it never conceals the blemishes of their heroes, right? Think about this, right? I mean, it helps authenticate the velocity or the fidelity of our scriptures, right? If we take some examples such as Abraham, he had a lapse of faith, right? Isaac, he's a guy that lied and deceived many. Moses, we're even talking about him here. Well, he's a guy that complained and disbelieved a few times, right? And what about King David? What did he do? He committed adultery, he killed people, but yet he was called a man after God's heart. So doesn't that help us understand that even we, as we are, can be redeemed, right? All right.
We're not perfect and we never will be.
Nope, we are not perfect and we never will be. So the 2 sons died in the wilderness, right? And, well, we know who they are now, right?
Yeah, Nadab and Abihu.
And Nadab and Abihu. And why did they die?
They tried to bring unclean fire, which God would have given holy fire. And
Yeah,
to light the temple.
correct. So there was a process that they were supposed to follow, right? So to reflect on that, these 2 obviously were called to ministry, right? And they were supposed to be set apart, and they were supposed to bring the fire the correct way. I got it written down right here. They were instructed to take a coal from the brass altar in the courtyard where the animals were sacrificed. That live coal was perpetually to be kept burning, right? It means that God lit it, it never went out, right? They were supposed to take that, and they were supposed to take that in and lay the incense on it. But what these 2 guys decided to do is they took a shortcut. Instead, they took a coal from their own fire that was close because, I don't know, maybe they didn't want to walk that far. I don't know. Didn't have the tools to do it. I don't know. Because the Bible doesn't tell me that. But they used their fire, and they were struck dead for it. So what does this tell you? The priest's job has to be done right. Right? Say what? No shortcuts. There's no shortcuts.
Whatever God's will is better for them.
Yes. Yes. There's a couple other incidences of this type of judgment, right? Where the Lord acted out on it. But we'll get into those as we get a little bit deeper. We see at the beginning of these times that God created a theocracy, right? That means God was here, people were here, and God dictated to them the rules, right? He was in charge, right? The tabernacle was the place that he met with his people. Later, under King David, the people wanted a monarchy, right? And under King David, where Uzzah touched the ark, he was struck dead too. Did they transport the ark the correct way?
Nope. They put it in a cart.
No, they put it in a cart, and then the cart, according to Scripture, the ark appeared to look like it was going to fall, or he went to steady it, and poof, he was burned alive or disintegrated. At the beginning of the New Testament church, in Acts 5, Ananias and Sapphira, who lied to the Holy Spirit, were both struck dead. How important is it to be honest? How important is
They
it?
were trying to hide things from God.
Mm-hmm.
It goes on with money and all that. They were trying to hide stuff.
Yeah, they could have been honest with God and say, hey, I'm going to give half, and God probably would have been okay. But they said, no, we're going to give all. And then they took half or a portion. I don't know. I don't recall the exact amount. Yep, they fibbed about it, and both were struck dead, right? This is God showing himself to be holy and demanding of holiness, right? Does Paul also warn of this when he says, be careful when you take communion? So that's how holy this is, right? All right, as we move on, verses 5 through 9. Anybody want to read 5 through 9?
I'll read.
All right, 5 through 9.
And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, bring the tribe of Levi near, and present them before Aaron the priest, that they may serve him. And they shall attend to his needs and the needs of the whole congregation before the tabernacle of meeting to do the work of the tabernacle. Also they shall attend all the furnishings of the tabernacle of meeting, and to the needs of the children of Israel to do the work of the tabernacle. And you shall give the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They are given entirely to him from among the children of Israel.
All right. So verses 5 through 9 instructs Moses that all the Levites work for Aaron because of the work of the tabernacle is large and requires a large amount of people to do the work. So in here we learn that part of the role is to guard the tabernacle, right? Here's Levites' jobs, to guard the tabernacle from non-Levites. They're still Israelites. They're still members of the same race, right? But again, God is separating his holiness from them, right? And giving them the jobs. They are to carry and manage the tabernacle during the wandering, right? We find that out. What else? And the other work that Aaron and his family could not do, right? So this is very similar to God, or to Christ and God the Father of all of us, right? We see this in John 17:6, the high priestly prayer of Jesus. I have revealed your name to the men who have gave me out of this world, that they are yours, and you gave them to me, and they have kept your word. God gave us him, or Jesus, to work in some form in our ministry to help us. Right? All right, who wants to read just verse 10? Just 10.
Okay. Appoint Aaron and his sons to serve as priests. Anyone else who approaches the sanctuary must be put to death.
Wow. Is that not a... That's harsh? All right, so God chose the Israelites, right? If you recall from the study in Exodus, in chapter 19:6, God made a statement. He said to the people of Israel, his chosen people, you shall make a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. These words that I speak to the people of Israel. So he wants the whole Israelites, all of Israelites, to be holy and separated, right? God's desire for Israel is that they would be a light to the Gentile nations, right? Their jobs, well, I'm getting ahead of myself there. Their job is to bring the light to the pagan nations. They turn inward on themselves a little bit. I'm giving you a little history now. They're going to turn inward on themselves and become very closed. They're not going to allow, and even today, the Jews are a little this way, right? That they don't just let anybody worship with them. This explains a lot about religious leaders in Christians today. They have become inward focused and unbelievers, to say. They did not even touch them or walk next to them. So they've changed. They're charged with protecting the priesthood. And why I went into all that is because we have to protect ourselves, right? This is what Christ wants us to do, is protect ourselves and then bring the gospel to everyone, right? God's very serious with this death part, if we haven't figured that out yet, right? In 1 Samuel, we see, talking about this death part, in 1 Samuel, we'll see the Ark of the Covenant is stolen by the Philistines and taken to Ashdod, a place where the temple of the dragon is their god. The next morning, they see the statue. This is a huge, tall statue, probably 20 feet tall or better, right? This huge statue has fallen on its face as if it's worshiping the ark. They stood it back up. Then the next day, it was the same, only its head and its hands were cut off. So then God struck the people of the city with tumors. The people got mad because they were dying off, and they sent the ark to Elkin, another Philistine city. You got to be like kidding me. You sent it to your friends, right? Okay. But the Elkinites immediately sent it on to another Philistine city, Beth Shemesh. And these people took the ark they actually touched it and looked in it. Guess what happened to them? They died. Yes. So God takes worship very, very seriously. And this is what this one verse means. And why, if somebody unclean was coming in, God only wanted holiness there. All right. Verses 11 through 13. All right.
Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Now behold, I myself have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel, instead of every firstborn who opened the womb among the children of Israel. Therefore the Levites shall be mine, because all the firstborn are mine. On the day that I strike all the firstborns in the land of Egypt, I sanctify to myself all the firstborns in Israel, both man and beast. They shall be mine. I am the Lord.
All right. So what happens here is God is reminding Moses of the 10th and final plague that before they left Egypt, right? That these firstborn, they put the blood on the doorpost, right? And death passed them over, right? Well, those Israelites now, those firstborn belong to God, right? That's what he's saying. He's saying, I protected you. Now, since you've come out into the wilderness, these firstborn belong to me, right? All right, so 14 through 30, God claims the Israelites. All right, the firstborn, verses 14 through 39. This is a long one, so I get it if I don't get a volunteer.
I'll do it. Yep, you're reading it.
Oh, Gary's going to read it. All right. You can split it in half if you want. If you get tired.
Number the children of Levi after the house of their fathers by their families. Every male from the month old and upward shall thou number them. And Moses numbered them according to the word of the Lord, as he was commanded. And these were the sons of Levi by their names: Gershon and Kohath and
Merari.
Certain names of the son of Gershon by their families, Libni and Shimei, and the sons of Kohath by their families, Amram and Izhar, Hebron and Uzziel, and the sons of Merari by their families, Merari and Mashai. These are the families of the Levites according to the house of their fathers. Of Gershon was the family of Libnites, and the family of Shemites. These are the families of the Gershonites. And those that were numbered of them, according to the number of all the males, from the month old and upward, even those that were numbered of them were 7,500. The families of the Gershonites shall pitch behind the tabernacle westward. And the chief of the house of the father of Gershon, or of the Gershonites, shall be Eliasaph, the son of Lael. And the charge of the sons of Gershon in the tabernacle of the congregation shall be the tabernacle, the covering thereof, and the hanging for the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the hangings of the court, and the curtain for the door of the court, which is by the tabernacle and by the altar round about, and the courts of it, with all the service thereof. And of Kohath was the family of Amorite, and the family of the Israelites, and the family of Hebronite, and the family of Uzite. These are the families of the Kohathites. And the number of all the males from the month old and upward were 8,600, keeping the charge of the sanctuary. And the families of the sons of Kohath shall pitch on the side of the tabernacle southward. And the chief of the house of the father of the families of the Kohathites shall be Elizaphan,
Mm-hmm.
son of Uzziel. And their charge shall be the ark, and the table, and the candlestick, and the altars, and the vessels of the sanctuary, wherewith they minister, and the hanging of all the service thereof. And Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, shall be chief over the chief of the Levites, and have the oversight of them that keep charge of the sanctuary. And that Merari was the family of the Malite, family of the Mushites. These are the family of Merari. And those that were numbered of them according to the number of all the males from the month old and upward were 6,200. And the chief of the house of the father of the family of Merari was Zuriel, the son of Abihail. These shall pitch on the side of the tabernacle northward. And under the custody and charge of the sons of Merari shall be the boards of the tabernacle, and the bars thereof, and the pillars thereof, and the sockets thereof, and all the vessels thereof, and all that service thereto. And the pillars of the court round about, and their sockets, and their pins, and their cords. But those that encamp beyond or before the tabernacle toward the east, even before the tabernacle of the congregation eastward, shall be Moses and Aaron and his sons, keeping the charge of the sanctuary, for the charge of the children of Israel, and the stranger that cometh nigh shall be put to death. And all that were numbered of the Levites, which Moses and Aaron numbered after the commandment of the Lord, throughout the families, all the males from the month old and upward, were 22,000.
All right. I know that was a long one.
Took a lot of people, Matt, to take care of the tabernacle.
22,000. Yes. Yes.
They all had a job they did.
They all have a job. Yes. Right? So Moses was instructed to number the tribe, right? And the smallest tribe of the Israelites had 22,000 males in it, 1 month and older, right? Now the families of Kohath, Merari, and Gershon were all different. They had all different jobs, right, as we read about. The Kohathites camped on the south side of the tabernacle, and they were in charge, hang on, of the articles like the Ark of the Covenant, the incense, the golden candlesticks, and etc. They managed, maintained it, and transported it. I don't think I broke all those down. Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. They maintained, managed, and transported it. The Gershonites camped on the west side of the tabernacle, and they were in charge of the hangings, the skins, the drapes, the cover, everything that covered the holy place and the Holy of Holies, right? The Merari, they camped on the north side of the tabernacle, and they had all the infrastructure pieces, like the poles, the sockets, the boards, the pegs, and so on, right? Every man had a job. Think about that. They were instructed, regardless if they were to pick up this board and carry it with them, that's what their job was. So how important is it that you don't get laid down on your job or tired of it, right? Think about that. That job, what happens if that one guy doesn't make it?
The pieces don't fit.
The pieces don't fit, right? And that's exactly what this is. That's exactly what we're talking about here. Yep. All right.
Tabernacle was a lot bigger than I imagined it to be, just reading it about it.
Yeah, I got a picture that we'll get next week that'll break it all down, the sizes and where they all are.
The world's largest jigsaw puzzle.
Movable jigsaw puzzle. Yes. Yes.
Portable.
Yes. Yep. Yep. And wandered for 38 and a half years, right? 40 technically, but moved around a lot. All right. Who wants to read verse 40 through 51?
I'll give her a shot.
All right.
Say
40
40 through 51.
through 51.
And the Lord said unto Moses, number all the firstborn of the males of the children of Israel from a month old and upward, and take the number of their names. And thou shalt take the Levites for me. I am the Lord, instead of all the firstborn among the children of Israel, and the cattle of the Levites, instead of all the firstlings among the cattle of the children of Israel. And Moses numbered, as the Lord commanded him, all the firstborn among the children of Israel, and all the firstborn males by the number of names from a month old and upward. Of those that were numbered of them were 22,213. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, take the Levites instead of all the firstborn among the children of Israel, and the cattle of the Levites instead of their cattle, and the Levites shall be mine. I am the Lord. And for those that are to be redeemed of the 213 of the firstborn of the children of Israel, which are more than the Levites, thou shalt even take 5 shekels apiece by the pole, after the shekel of the sanctuary shalt thou take them. The shekel is 20 gerahs. Thou shalt give the money wherewith the odd number of them is to be redeemed unto Aaron and to his sons. And Moses took the redemption money of them that were over and above them that were redeemed by the Levites. Of the firstborn of the children of Israel took he the money, 1,365 shekels, after the shekel of the sanctuary. And Moses gave the money of them that were redeemed unto Aaron and to his sons, according to the word of the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses.
All right. So looking at that, that's kind of confusing, isn't it? Anybody understand what's going on? Took me a while. All right. So this now comes the redemption of the firstborn. So what do we mean by the redemption? Well, they're wandering around. God wants to show his authority. So Moses had to take account of the males that were older, 1 month older, and to dying, I guess, since they left Egypt. There's 22,273. That's a little easier to say than that way Larry had to say it, right? But, so there's a difference, right? Oh, too fast. So God wants redemption for the ones that have now been born outside of Egypt. There was 22,000 that left. Now there's 22,273. So we got to take the current count minus the 22,000 because that's the Levites, right? And now there's 273 newborns right here, right now, that need to be redeemed, right? So that leaves us 273 individuals that need to be redeemed. So God gave a commandment of 5 shekels each, right? So the tribe of Levi becomes the exchange for them, but God still needs a way for the 273 left. So Moses collects what from those families, the redemption money, a total of 1,365 shekels, or 5 shekels each, to redeem those individuals. So what happened is God substituted the whole tribe of Levi, the 22,000, for the 22,273 plus that money, right? Those were the firstborn in the 12 months of their travel. So there's 273 that were born in the 12 months of travel because God redeemed them at the Exodus with the blood on the doorpost. Remember that? Okay. So that's the 22,000. They're redeemed. Now, those that left were not redeemed, meaning that they were born in the wilderness. So God's redeeming them now, making them whole, bringing them into his priestlyhood. So God had to deal with the difference, the 273. So God let them be redeemed with with the 5 shekels each, which equals about 170 pounds of silver according to calculations. The money was then given to the Levites or Aaron for the work in the tabernacle.
I have a question.
Yep.
Is that kind of sort of like what they do when they take them now newborns? Like they took Jesus to the temple to pay?
They offer sacrifice. Yeah, probably it's along these lines. Yes. Today a lot of faiths, baptize babies. It's kind of along these lines as well. Yep. But the priest had some different, the priest had some different instructions than the rest of the people. So gathering what we're getting out of this book, so we've figured out how the camps camped, what the other tribes do. They're all the armies, right? So now we're down to the Levites, and they have worship duties, that taking care of the tabernacle, taking care of, God's place with them, right? So the priests have different instructions than the rest of the people. The reason that they are servants of the Lord, they're separated. They are to keep a higher standard, right? They were responsible for all the holy objects, the teaching of the law, the teaching to the people, and later on judging. The book of James puts this emphasis on teachers as well. James 3:1 says, "Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with a greater strictness." So it's important that we read, understand, and articulate back what's going on, right? And that's exactly what the Levites were told to do. All right. You guys got your question sheets out? We've ended this chapter. Do the Levites get any land in their promised land, in the promised land? No, they do not. They inherit God. Very good. Their inheritance is the Lord. They also, did anybody get how they lived? Where they lived? Well, they did as they moved. You are correct. They were in the center as they moved. But after they get to the promised land,
They get the cities.
there's 48 cities that they live in that are Levite cities scattered throughout all of Israel.
And
Yep.
was their job in these cities?
The exact same. Yep. To teach, and later to judge. There's some judgment that comes on. We'll see that later. And then obviously once a year they go to the tabernacle once a year. All right, whoop, giving the answers away. What are Aaron's sons' names that died in the wilderness, and why did they die?
Nahab and Ephraim.
Yep.
This is called
Avenue.
false fire.
Yep.
False fire.
False fire, profane fire. They introduced profane fire to God, right? They disobeyed. They took a shortcut. All right. Whoop. Question. It's clicking too fast. What work must the Levites do according to God?
Overall, take care of the tabernacle. That's the big umbrella.
I got a few bullet points up there here. I'll put them. Yep, they're the teachers of the law. They represent the people to God, right? They handle the tabernacle service. They handle the sacrifices and all the things that go on, right? And then they are also the set up and tear down crew, right? Question?
I still let you move it too quick before we copy it all down.
It's all right. We'll wait a second. Yeah, this one's got a few things in this one. You guys good? Nope, I still see a few copying. It's all right. We'll wait a second. Good? All right. All right. How are the Levites counted? One by one. Somebody's going to be a comedian.
Month older or
Yeah.
every
All males, 1 month or older, right? How many were counted by Moses?
22,273.
Yep. Price is right. Look at that. How many are, or how are they redeemed? Now this is the end, the 40 through 51. That's how this happens.
By the payment of shekels.
Well, that's part of it, right? So the 22,000 were redeemed because of the Exodus, right? So they were already redeemed. So they're the Levites. So the current Levites, and then the leftover are the 273, which are purchased by the 5 shekels. Yes. Well, the 1,300 of them was about 170 pounds of silver. So I don't know what I don't trade in shekels today. Oh, you do? All right. You guys got any other questions from me?
You know, I looked up that shekel thing one time, but right off the top of my head, I can't think of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the price of silver changes nowadays.
Oh, yeah. They still use it today.
Hey Nellie, you want to go hit stop on the? Any other questions? Nope. All right. Well, we'll get into the duties next week. We'll actually see what the